manager's dinner there last week. And McLean is an absolute fucking genius. Are we allowed to curse?
Yeah. You can say whatever.
Absolute fucking genius. And that crew is doing such a great job over there. We've had an amazing experience. Yeah.
And I mean, tip of the cap, not only to Max, McKissick, shout out. We'll see him next week at the X Games at 7908. But at the same time, that whole crew, front and back of house, like those folks deserve to be applauded. And I feel like somebody is cheating the system when they're not going about the proper route, which is what you've done, Kayla. Like you've gone this route, and I think it's been it's shown because you have won Best Denver Instagram B2B. Yeah. B2B. You're like the Golden State Warriors of Instagram accounts. Sorry, my volume's going a little loud. You're the Golden State Warriors of Instagram accounts. So, we're going to continue to harp on this, and we're going to dive into some Colorado segments.
Sure.
But we wanted our listeners to don't forget 1,000 Things to Do in Denver is about to give you the rundown, and Chris, general manager of Adelise and Palenque, am I saying it right?
You got it right, yep.
Fucking took forever. What's it called? But you're sitting here sporting a Ratio Brewery hat, so you're kind of same kind of the rug. Locals, that's our jam.
Yeah, they're good people, man, and just such good products consistently, and we tend to focus on their specialty one-off kind of stuff, just because I'm a beer snob and that's what I like, but when we can't get that, we love their, run-of-the-mill Saison, which is not exactly run-of-the-mill. Good stuff.
The Deer
and good
Use?
people. Yeah.
Oh, the Deer Use.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Deer Use classic. Yeah.
Yeah, that shit's great.
All right.
So Chris, if you were gonna tell our listeners, if you were gonna describe this mezcaleria, or for those people who haven't been to Mexico, or those people who haven't dove into the mezcal kind of area, what would you say to bring them down here? Or what would you kind of say the theme here is?
The theme is us trying to recreate an authentic mezcaleria like you would find in Mexico. And that comes from us. The owner, Brian Rossi, is really passionate about, all things agave spirits. And he spent a lot of time traveling down there. And over the years, has visited mezcalerias. And one of the things that he's passionate about is making sure that the staff gets down there. If you're going to sell something, you got to know it, right? So it's one thing to read a tech sheet or have a sales rep tell you something. It's another thing to go down there and meet the guys that are making the stuff and see the land and, meet their families and all that kind of thing. So we do that. We do that a couple times a year. So in those travels, we've bumped into these mezcalerias and we had this space and we were like, we want to create that. It's our version. It's a little bit Americanized, just
Right.
because we have to. But
what the fuck's that supposed to mean? I'm just kidding.
it means that originally we didn't want to serve food and we didn't want to have vodka and things like that. But we're going to be accommodating, right?
Right.
So we've kind of met in the middle, as it were. But mezcal is a truly amazing, beautiful spirit. There's a lot of mythology and history and passion behind it. It's not something that's being cranked out without love. For the most part, there are industrial mezcals, but that's a whole nother podcast, I guess. But it's something that we're passionate about and we want to share with people. So while it is an acquired taste, we feel like we can introduce people to it with cocktails and with certain selections of spirits, and then once you acquire the taste, lead you into this rabbit hole that is the diverse flavors that are mezcal.
And I will second that because I've been here a couple times in the past.
You didn't tell anybody that before we booked it.
I know. And I will say that, number one, they are not bullshitting about their trips down to Mexico because they have photo evidence. They have photo books at the bar.
Yeah.
You can look and see some of the mezcal farms and things where they source. But yeah, I mean, if you're new to mezcal, these guys know what they're talking about, and they can kind of lead you through what may sometimes be intimidating. It's kind of like Scotch almost. But once you understand it and you understand the process, I think you can really fall in love with the spirit. And what better place to do it than down here?
The thing for me, sorry to cut you off, that I think that we found a good balance of is this is the sort of thing like Scotch that could be really pretentious. And snobby and we know everything and dick, but we try not to approach it that way. And it's more about let's have fun with it. Let's get you there. Do you want to know about it? Let's go down that rabbit hole. Do you want to just have it in a cocktail? Sweet. The education is available. We try and make that a focus, but we're not jamming it down your throat,
And now I'm sure you have these specialty cocktails, but I'd be really curious, for something as delicious as this on its own, do you put the mezcal in a regular margarita? I mean, I'm sure that you do, but what would you say highlights this the best as a cocktail?
I think for people that are just getting into it, I think the margarita is the best answer because exactly, because you get the difference between tequila and mezcal in a cocktail. It's noticeable without being overwhelming. And then as far as some of these mezcals are, in our opinion, precious and special. And if you ordered something off that shelf that is special and precious in a cocktail, I would kindly tell you no. I would kindly tell you, this is what you want to put in that cocktail. If you're ordering, a $16 ounce pour of something that's small batch and curated and special, that's meant to be sipped by itself. We have something that you can ease into neat. We have something that we can put in a cocktail and not feel bad about it.
And speaking of that, Palomas are great.
I love
it.
Absolutely.
If they're made with mezcal, it's a great
Should we get around to Palomas? But that also does remind me that when you mention, you don't want to waste a great shot on mixing it with a bunch of sugary and things like that.
Sure.
They do have Mezcal Mondays here at Palenque. And so I think we need to harp on that before we dive into future segments.
I'm just having a feeling that if I brought you to every meeting in Hollywood that
I'm
going to
get shit-faced drunk.
No. And you sat behind me doing kind of a color commentary of how great I was, like you are right now.
You are killing it.
I would have, but I mean.
Dude, for your first person.
You're hyping, you're never forgetting where we are and the great product that they have, and I love it.
Well, thank you for that flattering thing, but we like to, as a Coloradan likes to say, fuck California. But we do want to give a shout out to Mezcal Mondays here.
Definitely.
All pours between 10 to 15% or $10 to $15 are half off, along with the weekly 5 cups, which I will use the air quotes. It's an ever-changing curated list of 5 mezcals chosen by the agave, I guess, experts, such as folks like Chris and the other folks that have ventured down into the native land. And Chris is one of those guys. But when you'll start mentioning about, what would you put in a Paloma or a margarita? And I think a Paloma would really hit, the spot right now. So we may give a shout out to JJ and see if we can grab around to those. We do want to remind our listeners that if you were looking or if this is your itch, then the best way to scratch it is to come down to Palenque and grab the Monday Mezcal and or join them if you're an aficionado on Wednesdays for the first Wednesday of the month for Mezcal Wednesday.
Very
so whatever
nice.
the fuck you want to call it. And that's called segues, motherfuckers.
So speaking of segues, now should we wrap that into some
Colorado?
of our local segments? Where do these
Kayla,
Where-
you're so all right. So Chris, you are new to the program, and by that I mean 14 minutes. Kayla, you are new to this program, but I know you're a regular listener. You've always been a supporter of us, and we love you for that.
Really good. I'm really impressed. Not only the guests that you've had, seriously.
I think they want 3 Mezcal Palomas, please.
But the breadth of your interviews. I was like, these guys aren't nervous with Denise or Mickelson from 5280. I think Kelly Whitaker, that's a huge name to get.
Shout out. If, by the way, listeners, please go to the James Beard Foundation Award nominations and please vote for our Colorado friend Kelly Whitaker and the Wolves Taylor. They are up for 5 different awards for this year's James Beard Awards. And I swear to God, if this isn't our fucking campaign, I will go to bat for Kelly for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But it's time that we dive into some Colorado segments, and we want to get to know Chris, and we want to get to... I'm drunk. We're going to get to know y'all's picks.
Yeah.
So we've done this improv this week. So y'all are going to get kind of shit list here, but we're going to start with happy hours, date nights, best restaurants you've hit. best concerts and best meals you've had under $10.
Oh.
These are our regulars before we go into rapid fire, which luckily we can pull up. So, Chris, I'll let you lead the way. Kayla or Chris go. Or, damn it, I have two Chris's.
Right, it's Bama.
Sorry,
Bama.
I forget that my roommate is Bama.
So it's probably because you hate Bama. Anyways, so let's just dive in. Let's go. Like, what's this month's? Because it's hard to say your favorite all-time happy hour spot unless you have one.
I do.
But okay, well, fire away.
Well, I'll tell you, I love Dio Mio. So that is in Rhino. I think they're making some of the most exciting Italian food at such a fair, good price. So I go in there and I always order the cacio e pepe with Denise Mickelson of 5280 Magazine made on a Facebook Live. And I can be very if I love something, I always want to have it. But one night, we went for my birthday and my friend ordered the spaghetti and meatballs. It was the best spaghetti and meatballs this Italian has ever had. So their happy hour is 2 glasses of wine for $6. And then you also he's got a sourdough that they make. They make the best sourdough with prosciutto and I believe I forget the cheese that they have, a burrata, and it's sublime. Awesome. And the cacio e pepe, I believe you can get for $11 too.
And so I've done it for date night.
Yeah.
And that is literally and it's, like an earlier sesh.
Sure.
But at the same time, and it's also an intimate setting, it's just down the road. It's kind of hidden.
And there's a lot of you can, you can start there and go to Finn's and go to Ratio, and go to OMF.
And for the other direction, if you're going from there to that's an appetizer, it's a starter.
Yeah.
You can start with a Dio Mio, and the bottles of wine are even
right. I think they have a Wednesday
charged.
that it's half off. I will say Linger too. Linger, every bite is $5. So you want a plate of fries, it's $5. You want
Devil's
a slider, $5. Yeah, and a lot of vegetarian and a lot of vegan and a lot of gluten free because I get a lot of people asking. But to get every dish for $5 and then to also get drinks at $6 that's a deal.
All right, so Chris, not named my roommate, but GM, we do a regular segments of
thank you so much.
Your tops of the town. We don't know exactly how long you've been here because we didn't give you the full background, but we do want to get your nitty gritty. You obviously have contacts and friends in the industry. If God forbid, you get a day off, where are you spending your happy hour?
That was going to be my preface that me being in a happy hour scenario is fairly few and far between. But my go-to would be Angelo's. The broiled oysters. That's my happy place. If
6th Avenue or down south?
6th Avenue. I haven't been to. They have a south location too.
They've got one out. They've got one out in Littleton area.
I call everything everything south of Broadway is down south.
Yeah, you're correct.
Hey, on his mention too, shout out to Carboy Wines on doing the whole wine. Shout out their wines there.
Yeah, and so we want to thank our friends over at Angelo's for hooking up our friends, and by ours we mean Coloradans. Carboy Wines based out of Littleton, also in Breckenridge. Tyzock Wharton, friend of the program, but at the same time, that's a great call. They even do not only oysters on the half shell for cheap, but they also do those pizzas and they have a bunch of good appetizers that you can get, bang for a buck. I think would be the best happy hour. Let's go. What's our next question we usually ask?
So I would say we'll start with Chris this time. Let's go with
Chris on Chris.
Put me on the spot. I love it.
Is this Chris versus Chris?
So we'll go with either what's your date? Well, let's go 2 to 1. What's your date night spot? And then what's kind of the best meal you've had in Denver in the past, let's say, couple months?
Morin definitely constitutes. That manager meal was solid. L5
is that your date night?
Yeah, it's my date night.
That's your date night spot?
My wife is vegetarian, so a lot of it is sort of whatever she's in the mood for. But if I'm picking, it would be L5. Yeah.
Those roasted carrots over there.
Yeah.
The view.
The view,
yeah.
I would
view.
say it's the most beautiful view in Denver, and I think maybe the best designed restaurant in Denver.
And that view actually makes Denver look like a big city.
Yeah.
Like when you're up there, you look down at Denver and you're like, holy shit.
Time
like,
out.
I don't even know if I can get around downtown on a
Yeah,
scooter.
but you can't close the deal at L5.
No,
I can't help you.
And so my shout out to my ex-girlfriend. She knows who she is. First date was L5, but the problem was I set the bar so goddamn high.